This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Wendy Griffith. Lawmakers in Illinois have advanced what could be the nation's most liberal abortion law. Supporters say the measure is necessary to counter other states' actions to restrict abortion and the threat to overturn Roe v. Wade. Reporter Charlene Aaron has more from our CBN newsroom. Charlene.
That's right, Wendy. House Democrats in Illinois voted to replace the state's abortion law with a measure that would make abortion a primary right in the state. According to the Thomas More Society, the bill known as the Reproductive Health Act is worse than the bill passed in New York earlier this year and would make Illinois, quote, an abortion destination for the entire country. Abortions would be allowed for any reason and at any time during pregnancy. Among other provisions, the amended bill requires private health insurance companies that cover pregnancy-related benefits to cover abortions, even late-term abortions. There are no exceptions for churches, religious nonprofits, or pro-life individuals or small business owners. The bill even strikes current law that protects parents from having to pay for a child's abortion when performed without parental consent and removes criminal penalties for doctors who perform abortions. In a statement, the Catholic Conference of Illinois said the fundamental premise of the bill is flawed, and no amendment or tweak to the language will change the fact that it is designed to rob the vulnerable life in the womb of any trace of human dignity and value. Meanwhile, the U.S. Supreme Court is upholding an Indiana law that requires abortion providers to dispose of aborted fetuses in the same way as human remains. But the justices refuse to consider the state's effort to ban abortions based on sex, race, or disability. The justices said the case does not involve limits on a woman's right to an abortion. Lila Rose of the pro-life action group Live Action responded to the ruling in a tweet saying, "Today's SCOTUS decision justly upholds Indiana's fetal remains law, ensuring babies killed by abortion get humane, decent burial. But they rejected deciding on the blocked ban on abortions based on sex, race, and disability. No reckoning with Roe yet, but I think it will still come." Wendy, back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Charlene Aaron in the newsroom. Well, joining us now is Peter Breen, former Illinois representative and Thomas More Society vice president and senior counsel. Peter, thanks for being with us.
Glad to be here.
Peter, what makes this bill so different than other pro-abortion bills that we've seen?
Well, this bill pretty much legalizes second and third trimester abortions up to the moment of birth with no limits. It also repeals all of the specifics on reporting requirements in Illinois. So really, there will be no check on what we consider post-viability abortions. So preemie babies who are fully able to survive outside the womb will be able to be aborted under this bill. As well, it's repealing the licensing standards for abortion clinics. So Illinois has a history of filthy abortion clinics being regulated and shut down. No more, because there will not be any licensing requirements, so no ability of the state to go in and check on these facilities.
Peter,
as well,
I'm so sorry. What are you hearing? How is the pro-life community responding?
Well, we're responding strongly and vigorously. The floor debate is actually occurring right now on this in the House. It still needs to go back to the Senate, but really, we're at a place where we need to be praying right now, and if it does pass, we're going to have to be working to try to repeal this particular provision. The people of Illinois are not anywhere like folks in certain other blue states, as we call them. The people of Illinois don't like late-term abortion. They are not in favor of putting abortion as a fundamental right, as this bill would do, ahead of even the First Amendment. And this bill would just it would enshrine into law something that the people of Illinois are fundamentally against.
Peter, what is the next step? What can we expect to come of this?
Well, we're going to look at legal action to make sure that the religious liberty rights of healthcare workers and of small business owners and religious entities are protected. Because in the last few years, we've had the pro-abortion side of the Illinois legislature has sought to reduce the ability of healthcare workers to object and to not participate in abortions. This bill would actually repeal the express protections for healthcare workers to not participate in abortions. It also has no protection in the bill to keep religious entities and nonprofits and small businesses from having to do abortion coverage in their health insurance plans.
Peter, in Indiana this week, right next door, the court upheld burial of fetal remains, but let stand the lower court's ruling against a ban on abortions based on race, gender, and disability. What does this decision tell us about how the court might rule on a law challenging Roe v. Wade?
Well, and we're going to have to see. Justice Clarence Thomas wrote a wonderful dissent in that case. He actually cited a Thomas More Society brief in his dissent, so we were glad to be able to provide that help, technical assistance, to the court. But he was wonderful in calling out the eugenic nature of abortion and the history of abortion in trying to really do the sorts of racial. Racist sorts of eugenic work that had been done in the 20s and 30s in this country and elsewhere. So he is trying to lay a foundation so that the court, when it takes up, say, the sex selection ban from some other state, it will have a good foundation to strike down the other side's arguments, to be able to say, hey, we can prohibit these sorts of sex selection abortions, race selection abortions. I'm still very hopeful that the court is going to overturn Roe v. Wade very soon. We think we've got a 5-justice pro-life majority. They are taking their time. They're being careful, and that, for the sake of the country, I understand why they're doing it. I hope we can get it done sooner rather than later.
Amen. We're going to have to leave it there. Peter Breen, thanks so much for sharing your insights with us.
Hey, thank you.
Devastation across the central U.S. as more than 50 tornadoes were reported across 8 states in just 24 hours. Multiple tornadoes swept through Indiana and Ohio Monday night. At least 15 people have been killed, dozens more injured. Millions are without power. The entire state of Oklahoma under a state of emergency as more tornadoes and heavy rain are expected. Flooding in Arkansas is expected to hit record levels. A church group of 25 people rode out the Ohio tornado last night inside a church building. They say the power of prayer helped them get through.
Within 5-10 seconds, it goes from dead quiet to a jet engine taking off. I run in, just dive on the ground. My head lands on a vent. My head's up against the wall and the wall's shaking back and forth. There's wind from the tornadoes pushing through up through the vent.
Wow. Today marks 11 straight days of tornadoes and severe weather. Well, the Boy Scouts of America are facing more lawsuits out of New York as victims of sexual abuse continue to speak out. The organization has already faced numerous lawsuits for sexual abuse. Hundreds more are expected after several states passed laws adjusting restrictive statute of limitations laws. The Boy Scouts have a list of thousands of adults deemed ineligible to work with Scouts because of confirmed or suspected acts of molestation.
The entire organization is based on this idea that here's a man you can trust. It's not your own dad. This is someone you can trust and you should trust. How on earth can you tell kids that and tell parents that when you know that you have this systemic problem that they can't all be trusted?
In a statement, the Boy Scouts said, quote, "We believe victims. We support them, and we have paid for unlimited counseling by a provider of their own choice. We mandate that all leaders, volunteers, and staff members nationwide immediately report any abuse allegation to law enforcement." Well, President Trump is wrapping up his visit to Japan. While in country, Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe attended an event on board a Japanese naval destroyer. Abe told the group of Japanese and American armed forces the fact that they are standing together aboard the ship was a testament to their robust alliance. Trump said it was a celebration of friendship between the two countries during an historic beginning for Japan's new emperor. Trump also said he'd back Abe's efforts to open communication with Iran. Well, as tensions between the U.S. and Iran continue, Iran's military leaders are talking tough. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said it does not fear a possible war with the U.S. and claims that America hasn't grown in power. This after the U.S. deployed an aircraft carrier and B-52 bombers to the Persian Gulf. The Trump administration also plans to send 900 additional troops to the area. Iran's leaders say they don't support engaging in any war, but also don't fear the occurrence of a war. And we'll have more on this story and others on Faith Nation this evening. You can watch it right here on the CBN News Channel. A new bill pending approval by the Irish government is just a few steps away from becoming law. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, if the legislation is approved, it would have profound consequences for both Irish and Israeli citizens.
The proposed law would make it illegal for Irish citizens to buy goods and services from Israeli citizens in what they define as the occupied territories. That would make it illegal to buy an ice cream, a postcard, or a bottle of water here in the old city of Jerusalem.
We bought ice cream and we bought water, and we bought it here in the old city next to Jaffa Gate. And if this bill passes, then what we just did would be illegal.
Irish citizens Karen and Norman Ivers, along with their twins, Natalie and Nathaniel, visit Israel often.
Well, it's an infringement of our freedoms.
If it becomes law, an Irish citizen convicted for violating it could be fined more than $250,000 and spend up to 5 years in jail. International law expert Professor Eugene Kontorovich calls the bill radical.
The proposed Irish law is the most extreme anti-Israel legislation proposed anywhere outside of the Arab League. If you come to the Holy City and you buy some holy water, if you buy some Jewish prayer shawl or religious books, bring them back to Ireland, bang, jail.
We love Israel. We're Christian Zionists, and we support the Jewish people and the Palestinian people, and we think this bill is unfair.
One of the only reasons the law has not been passed yet is because the Irish government is properly worried about the consequences it's going to have for Irish companies doing business in America and many of the large American companies like Apple that do business in Ireland, because America has strict laws against boycotting Israel.
In the meantime, the Ivers hope their next visit to Jerusalem won't land them in jail. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
People want to know, is there a plan and how do you find it?
CBN presents The Plan. 8 keys for understanding God's will for your life.
We're going to talk about God's plan for your life.
Is there a plan for everyone's life?
In Pat Robertson's latest teaching, you'll discover the secret to knowing and living out God's unique purpose for you.
The plan of God will be unfolded in your life in ways you couldn't believe possible.
In The Plan, Pat reveals the principles to understanding God's will so that you will be filled with peace, provision, joy, and satisfaction. Plus, see amazing stories of how others are living out their individual purpose intended by God.
God is faithful, and we did what He told us to do.
Live the life God has designed for you.
I hope that God works out a plan in you that will bring blessing, joy, peace, and happiness.
Get the plan. Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Comic great Tim Conway died 2 weeks ago and was remembered last week in Los Angeles by his family and friends in what was called an intimate gathering. CBN's Ephraim Graham spoke with one of his friends about Conway's professional and personal legacy.
Comedian Louise Duarte joins us now. She worked several years with Tim Conway and Harvey Korman. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's begin talking about your work with Tim and Harvey. What was that like?
It was a little girl's prayer answered and a dream come true. I always prayed when I was a little kid that I would meet the great Tim Conway and Harvey Korman and that I would do sketches with them like Carol Burnett did. And God heard the prayers of a little girl, and later in my life, that's what happened.
It warms my heart just to hear that. What is one of your favorite memories from the Together Again tour?
There were so many. It's so hard to pick one, but there was one particular memory that really has stayed with me. It was right after 9/11, and we were scheduled to perform, I think it was in Cincinnati, and Tim called me up and he said, Louise, you know, we're obviously not going to perform because of what happened 9/11. And I said, oh, absolutely, absolutely. And then later that day, he said, no, get on a plane. You're going to Cincinnati. And I said, what happened? He said, well, the entertainment director there said, no, you've got to come. We're selling tickets like crazy. We are sold out. You've got to be here. So we went to Cincinnati. And Tim spoke right before, you know, the show started about, you know, 9/11, but was like very calming to the audience. In all the over 10 years that I worked with Tim and Harvey, and over 100 dates a year, I have never heard an audience laugh that loud or applaud that much. And it showed me that they were bathed in laughter, that Tim and Harvey were doing something so special that God chose them to do, to touch people with laughter and lift their spirits. And we talked about it afterwards. We all went to dinner. And we were kind of very quiet. And then we looked at each other and said, look what God has done, that he used the three of us, these three fools. He uses the fools to confound the wise, to touch people's hearts. It was just a very, very special night.
Indeed. That's why the scripture says laughter is just like medicine. It doeth good, just like medicine. Now, we know that Tim could even throw Carol Burnett off as well as Harvey Korman, and he often tried to get them to laugh on the Carol Burnett show. Did he ever get you to laugh out of character like that?
Oh, my gosh. Every single night. Every night. And, you know, we would do a lot of the same sketches, but I would look at Tim in the eye, and he would have this little twinkle every single night. And I could not look him in the eye, because if I did that, I would just crack up.
What do you think Tim Conway's legacy will be in the world of comedy and among those who knew him and loved him?
Oh, gosh. One of the greats. One of the greats. He made comedians laugh. He was one of a kind, and I know that he's up in heaven now with Harvey, and they're getting standing O's, and they're cracking people up. But he was one of the, not only a great comedian, but he was a great, gentle man.
Before we let you go, this will be the last word. What impact did he have personally on your life?
He changed my life forever. My best memories are with Tim and Harvey. He literally changed my life forever.
Louise Duarte, thank you so much for your time. God bless you.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, you know, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Hillsburg Falls man, come...
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
How can you find God's plan for your life?
CBN presents The Plan, 8 Keys to Understanding God's Will for Your Life. In Pat Robertson's latest teaching, you'll discover the steps to take in following God's plan, how to know for certain when God is leading you, how to get rid of spiritual blindness and see God work.
God said, I've got a plan to give you a future and a hope.
Get the plan. Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com.
Welcome back. Well, unhealthy chemicals, they're everywhere. They're in our cleaning products, body lotions and ointments, even our medicines. Many people are trying to detoxify their lives. As Lori Johnson tells us, they're turning to essential oils using plant extracts to help their homes and their bodies naturally.
Like millions of Americans, Sarah Hilburn struggled with emotional issues that led to physical ones.
I had gotten to the point where my anxiety and depression was keeping me from sleeping at night. I would spend several days out of the week just being awake the entire night, being awake the entire day.
Instead of seeking a prescription for Ambien or Lunesta, she turned to lavender oil.
I can honestly say that essential oil saved my life.
Putting the oil in a vaporizer next to her bed helped her begin getting more rest and in turn feeling happier.
I diffuse the lavender usually by itself just because it's very calming and it smells really good and it makes me sleepy.
Sarah also found other benefits. She puts cooling peppermint oil on her feet when she's feeling overheated and credits rose oil for her flawless complexion.
Oils extracted from plants have been used for medicinal purposes for centuries, but just in recent years, essential oils have exploded in popularity.
In his best-selling book, The Healing Power of Essential Oils, Dr. Eric Zielinski explains how to use dozens of these natural extracts.
You know, the Bible says the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations. I can think of no other substance on the planet that epitomizes that like essential oils.
Essential oils come from distilling parts of plants like the root, bark, flowers, and leaves.
When you inhale citrus essential oils specifically, like orange, neroli, bergamot, lime, and lemon, it's been shown clinically to help decrease anxiety, decrease depression, and boost your mood. A lot of research being done with cinnamon and blood pressure balancing, so whether someone's diabetic, someone's obese, there's a lot of things you could do.
Even many pills we take mimic what's in nature. Aspirin, for example, is modeled after willow bark, which people used for centuries as a pain reliever.
So next time your son or daughter, your grandson, your granddaughter gets a fever, you can apply some diluted peppermint or orange oil on his or her back, and you'll see the fever go down. Next time you get a sore throat, you could gargle with a little bit of myrrh essential oil and water. Next time you get a headache, you can apply some pain-relieving oils like frankincense or copaiba.
And benefits go beyond relying on the medicine cabinet. Dr. Zielinski and his wife Sabrina use essential oils instead of store-bought synthetics throughout their home, from body lotion to deodorant and beyond.
More people who are concerned about the chemicals in household cleaners are choosing essential oils because they clean naturally.
Sabrina makes her own laundry detergent using ylang ylang. No chemicals and about $20 to wash 150 loads.
So when you're thinking about not just your kids, but your animals as well, it's really important to choose the right things when you're cleaning.
That includes mixtures for dusting, cleaning glass, granite, and even tougher jobs.
But what about like your all-purpose cleaner? What about, you know, my stove? Is this really gonna work on the stove? Yes. Usually it has an orange, a clove, a cinnamon, a eucalyptus. It smells amazing. I mean, wait till you smell this. You're gonna be like, wow, that smells like Thanksgiving.
In just minutes, you can whip up hand sanitizer.
All you need is a 2-ounce glass spritzer bottle, 10 drops of essential oil. My favorite is lemon. Then you need 10 drops of witch hazel, 10 drops of a grain alcohol, and then you fill the rest of the bottle up with either purified or distilled water. Shake and go.
Since essential oils are highly concentrated, it's best to dilute them using what's known as a carrier oil, like jojoba. And watch out for fakes.
It is absolutely necessary to only use pure essential oils. What most people don't recognize is what a lot of these manufacturers are doing are synthetically adding different chemicals to essential oils and to other compounds to make them smell sweeter. And that's where you get your plugins from, your aerosols. And they have been linked to a number of diseases, neurotoxicity, cancer. We're talking Alzheimer's and dementia.
He recommends organic oils indigenously sourced with a batch report showing they're the real deal. So these days, Americans increasingly turn to natural, wonderful smelling essential oils for healing, personal care, and around the house. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Love that. Well, you can get more information for your health tonight on Healthy Living with Lori. That's at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break.
As the world watches from the outside,
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
And finally, a 96-year-old World War II veteran a video is going viral after a stunning rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner with his harmonica. It happened at a women's national team soccer match over Memorial Day weekend. Wow, that sounds amazing. Harmonica Pete, as they call him, served as a medic in World War II. ESPN shared the video on Twitter Sunday, where it quickly reached 2 million views by Memorial Day. Pete proudly delivered the performance wearing a USA Soccer shirt and a World War II veteran hat before waving to the crowd and then returned to his wheelchair. God bless him. That was awesome. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Newswatch. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.